Hi, my name is Ramesh Soni, and I'm a professor in the Department of Management at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. In this segment, we'll talk about facility location, which talks about where to locate your facility, which could be a manufacturing plant, it could be a service location, it could be a warehouse, it could be any other kind of facility to support an organization's objectives and goals. Supply chain management is very critical in today's environment. Organizations have become lean today, and the only way they can squeeze out more productivity is by working out on the entire supply chain. And facility location is very critical for supply chain planning. Where in the world you want to locate your warehouses, where do you want to have your manufacturing facility, is all related to supply chain management. Example, Federal Express, when it opened its first hub in Asia, it decided to locate in Philippines because of availability of the old air base that the Americans were leaving. But before that, it did evaluate a variety of different locations, and finally deciding on how it will link with its existing locations, its super hubs in America, which is the Memphis hub, and in Europe, which is the Paris hub. Incidentally, they have shut down the Philippines plant in 2009 and have moved to southern China. Mercedes built its first plant in Vance, Alabama, after evaluating 170 different sites in 30 states and 2 different countries. What convinced them to go to Vance, Alabama was the inducement. The state was willing to give them huge incentive in terms of tax rebate and other kinds of infrastructure building that convinced them to go to Alabama. In fact, I'll talk about this a little bit later in more detail. Hard Rock Cafe, when they opened in 2002 in Moscow, they took several years to plan out their supply chain, and they wanted to make sure that the quality of food that's available in China is of the same level that's available elsewhere in the world. So you see from these examples that supply chain and facility location, they go hand in hand. When we talk about facility location, we always talk in terms of global location. As I mentioned before, organizations are trying to maximize their profit and their benefit by going after new markets, going after emerging markets, because that's where the growth is. Also, cost of doing business. For example, certain countries provide competitive advantage in terms of cost, skilled labor, and so on. So in that context, we have to study our facility location decision-making process. When it comes to deciding on where to locate your new facility, the first option you want to explore is possibility of expanding your existing facility. However, in many situations, retrofitting an older facility does not lead to productivity gains that you would expect when you start building a new facility altogether. In many cases, companies decide on adding new location in addition to existing facility. And in some cases that we know of and we are familiar with, that companies have decided to close their existing operations completely and move to different locations. So these are some of the ways in which companies are deciding when it comes to locating their facilities. Location decisions involve hierarchical decisions that must be made. You may decide which part of the world you want to locate. Do you want to be in North America? Do you want to be in Asia? Do you want to be in South America? Which part of the world? Once you have decided where you want to locate, you may want to consider which region of the part you want to be. You want to be in, let's say, North America. Do you want to be in Northwest? Do you want to be in Southwest? Do you want to be in California? You want to be in Carolina? Where do you want to be? After you have decided that you want to be in a particular region, you may want to look into community considerations. You want to be in Butler County? You want to be in Indiana County? You want to be in Allegheny County? Where do you want to be? And once you have narrowed down your choice, then you start searching for specific site. Sometimes these decisions are hierarchical in nature, but sometimes you consider a variety of these factors concurrently. Country factor, the key thing that you want to look into is these economic and government stability, political system. Wherever you want to go to a place which is stable. You want to look into exchange rate. You want to look into culture, business culture. You want to look into whether a particular country has a culture of bribe, variety of factors that make an impact. You know, the education system in the country, will you have skilled labor available? Of course, you can have expats, you can move people around, but you still want to be able to recruit good employees from the country where you are based in. Regional factors within the country include things like cost of utilities, climate, construction cost, customer base, and so on. You'll be surprised that in the USA, the cost of utility, electricity, varies from region to region. There are some regions which are much cheaper than the other. You also want to look at community. Some of the things that businesses look for include inducement. How much money the local government, the local community is willing to give you in terms of tax incentives. I will discuss Mercedes' example in a few seconds. The government was willing to give them close to $169,000 for each job that they were bringing in Vance, Alabama. Do you have a specific site available which is easily accessible from highway, which has decent traffic pattern? Sometimes you may find a good site, but the traffic is so bad that it is impossible for a customer to get in or get out. Zoning restrictions, income level of the area where you are locating, that may also affect your decision. So these are some factors you may have to consider when you are deciding where you want to locate your new facility. Globalization is an integral part now. People understand what globalization means. At one time, many Americans thought globalization meant American businesses going to China and American businesses going to Philippines, American businesses going to Mexico and other parts of the world. But now everyone understands that globalization means any business from anywhere in the world can go anywhere else in the world. You go to Carolinas and you will find that there are numerous Japanese and German companies located there. In fact, in a small segment of highway, there are 50, 60 German companies located there only because they have the customer base, they are looking for American management skill, and they want to hedge against currency fluctuations. So they want to locate all over the world. So if currency fluctuates, you have a basket of currency and it is not affecting your cost. You have plants all over the world and you're using parts from all over the world. It's not going to affect your cost much because you're dealing with a currency, a basket of currencies. Labor cost and productivity issues. Many companies have realized that just because they have gone to a different part of the world where the cost of labor is lower does not mean that it's going to be cheaper for them. Example, you go to a country X where your cost of labor is only $1. per hour, but if they produce only 1/20th of what American workers can do, you have not really gained anything. So you have to look into productivity issue. Is the worker in the country where you are going as productive as an American worker is? You also go to a different part of the world because you're looking for worker skills. At this point, for example, CPA jobs are flooding to India because they can find highly skilled accountants, plenty of them who are willing to work at a lower price. Government incentive, as I alluded to this point a little earlier, Alabama governor gave away $169,000 per job in tax incentive to attract Mercedes plant in 1993. In fact, it was so bad, people were just totally against that. The other fact which is happening in the US is the Sun Belt is growing. The Sun Belt is the southern states. Perhaps there is a perceived image that the quality of life in the Sun Belt is better. However, people should not forget that many of the Sun Belt also have severe weather of different kind. In the north, we have the cold and the snow, but don't forget the tornado and other kinds of twisters and many other kinds of things that the southern states experience. Attitudes with respect to pollution, zoning, intellectual property, unionism, turnover, absenteeism, punctuality, bribe, ethics, and variety of these issues are very critical when you decide where in the world you want to be. For example, Enron went to India and they built a big power plant for about $4 billion called Dabhol Power Plant. It was a thermal power plant. They spent about $20 million in educating the Indians about the environmental impact of the power plant. And while they were building the plant, the government changed and they had to spend another $20 million in re-educating the Indians about the thermal power plant. What was that $20 million? Perhaps bribe? It's anyone's guess. In many parts of the Middle East, you run into problems where you're dealing with bribe. You cannot get things done unless you grease the palm of officials. And you have to think about those things because American companies by law cannot bribe, period. The companies can get in trouble. So you want to go to a country where you have some control over these factors. You also want to go somewhere close to your markets. You want to have a presence where you are selling. You want to also make sure that you have suppliers who are available to supply you the raw material and different components you need. Here is another one. Companies often locate close to their competition. And you wonder why. This is known as clustering. You wonder why that happens. Have you noticed that many of car dealerships are located next to each other in any city? And have you wondered why don't you want to be just away from the competition? Well, the fact is that if you have all different companies located close to each other, the customer says, well, let's go there and drive a Toyota and test drive Honda and perhaps make a decision. But if you were located somewhere else and 5 other businesses were in one area, guess what? You will not get the traffic. The same thing happens with the restaurant. In Georgetown area in Washington, D.C., there are hundreds of restaurants located all within walking distance. And you want to be there because you say, all right, I don't know what I want to eat today. Let me just go walk up there. There's a restaurant for, I want to have Ethiopian food, or I want to have Thai food, or I want to have some exotic cuisine. And they're all available. You make up your mind, it just draws a lot of people. You have a lot of traffic, and you will get a piece of the action. So you want to be close to that clustering area.